There is a quiet despair at the heart of every waking moment, an unspoken weight that presses against the chest of every soul who dares to face themselves, even for a fleeting second. And yet, there is no comfort in running, no solace in pretending the world is anything but what it is. The human condition is not an abstraction or a passing phenomenon, but a dark, raw truth that persists beyond all illusion. To see this truth, to look into the abyss with no veil to soften its gaze, is to step onto a path from which there is no return, no escape, and no reprieve. At the very core of existence, there is a simple reality: desire is endless, and it devours all who serve it. You have been taught to chase, to strive, to labor against the currents of your own being. Yet, in every pursuit, in every attempt to fill the void within, the very thing you chase slips from your grasp. There is no true satisfaction in any object of the will, no lasting peace in the completion of any task, no deep, abiding joy in the gratification of any need. For satisfaction is a mirage, a dream woven from the fibers of illusion. What you seek has already slipped into oblivion the moment you reach for it. This is the paradox that hangs like a weight on every human heart. That the very force driving your actions, the ceaseless striving, the yearning, the hunger for meaning is itself the source of your suffering. You labor under the illusion that something, someday, might fill you, that a person, a success, a possession might quench the fire that rages within. But all that you gather, all that you win, slips away from you just as quickly, leaving you hollow once more. The pursuit of satisfaction, the endless chase of fulfillment, is an act of surrender, a surrender to the false belief that desire can be quenched, that will can lead to peace. And yet, with each victory, you are further from the truth. Every new desire born, every success, every fleeting joy pulls you deeper into the cycle, into the trap of your own will. There is no escape from this, no solace in the distractions of the world, no reprieve in the promises of fleeting pleasures. The illusion is too strong, too deeply ingrained within the very structure of your existence. You have been conditioned to seek, to want, to believe that you must. But in truth, the search itself is the sickness, and every object of your search only a fleeting symptom of something far deeper, more insidious. The desire to be fulfilled is itself the wound that bleeds forever, no matter what balm you place upon it. What is the meaning of this endless striving, this ceaseless effort to achieve? Is there some purpose to all of this? Some reason why we are driven to burn in the fires of our own desires? Or are we simply subjects to an inexorable will, a force that shapes us from within, pushing us ever forward without regard for our peace, our truth, or our freedom? In truth, there is no grand design to human suffering. There is no cosmic purpose behind the misery that pervades every corner of your life. The will to live, to survive, to achieve these are not noble forces propelling you towards some divine end. They are blind, purposeless drives, like a wave crashing against the shore with no thought for the shape of the rock beneath it. They are forces of nature, indifferent to the particularities of your existence, and yet they shape every aspect of your life, every thought, every feeling. You are not the master of your will, you are its servant, bound by chains you cannot see, prisoners in a prison that does not need to be locked. And still, you chase, you grasp at shadows, hoping that one will be more substantial than the others. You hope that the next achievement, the next relationship, the next possession will somehow be the one that brings you peace. But you know, deep down, that peace is an illusion. It is a promise never kept. A promise whispered only to be broken. Peace is not something you can possess. It is not something you can earn. It is not something to be chased. And yet the chase goes on. The need remains. The striving never stops. There is a strange, agonizing beauty in this, for it is the very nature of human existence. We are bound to this ceaseless movement, not by choice, but by a force beyond our comprehension. It is not a mistake, not a failing of your character. It is the essence of being human. We are creatures of endless longing, of never-ending striving, trapped within the labyrinth of our own desires. We are born into this prison and die within it, each moment of our lives a step closer to the realization that what we seek is never to be found. There is a strange comfort in this realization, a quiet release that comes when the mind accepts the futility of its pursuit. To see the world as it truly is, not as you want it to be, but as it is to free yourself from the endless cycle of want. It is to step outside the dance of illusion and simply rest in the stillness of truth. To let go of the need to fill the emptiness. To let go of the hope that any achievement or acquisition can bring you peace is to come face to face with what you have always been, a creature of pure will, driven by forces you cannot see, bound by laws you cannot break. And yet, in this surrender, there is a strange release, not from suffering, for suffering is the very essence of existence, but from the desire to escape it. In this stillness, there is no victory, no triumph. There is no satisfaction or fulfillment to be found, but there is something else. There is the recognition of what is the quiet clarity that comes with seeing the world without the fog of illusion, without the veils of desire clouding your perception. And in this clarity, there is a strange comfort, not a comfort that comes from peace or joy, but a comfort that arises from simply knowing the truth that your suffering is not an aberration, but the very condition of being, that your desires are not mistakes, but expressions of the will to live, to survive, to be, and that this will, this ceaseless, unstoppable force, will carry you through this world, through your life and through your death, with no regard for your desires or your suffering. It will simply carry you, and in the end, when you let go of all that you have sought, when you cease the chase, there is only the quiet, dark embrace of nothingness. And that, too, is part of the truth. There is nothing more, nothing to hold, no goal to reach. There is only the endless, indifferent march of the will, and in that, there is a certain kind of peace. Not the peace of a satisfied heart, but the peace of surrendering to what is a peace that comes when you finally stop running, when you finally stop wanting. It is not a peace that fills the void, but a peace that recognizes the void as it is, empty, eternal, and without end. In this final moment, there is no victory, no resolution, only the quiet, unspoken truth that the search was always futile, that the suffering was always there, and that this is the way of things, not to be fixed, not to be overcome, but to be accepted, to be seen and in seeing, to dissolve. The will, the desire, the endless striving, all of it fades into the stillness. And in the stillness, there is no need for anything at all. There is only what is. It is not in the evasion of suffering that we find the truth, but in the intimate, unflinching embrace of it. You wish to escape, to flee the weight of existence, to quiet the endless mutterings of the mind that perpetually chant of pain and longing. But the very wish to escape suffering is but another illusion, another strand of the web that holds you captive. For in seeking to avoid pain, you are merely prolonging the agony. The mind, ever restless, will not be satisfied until it confronts the root of its sorrow. And this sorrow, though it may be momentarily softened by the distractions you seek, remains as close to you as your own breath. There is no transcendence in denial, no escape in resistance. The refusal to acknowledge suffering does not render it less real. It only distances you from its truth. To live in constant avoidance is to be like a traveler forever running from a storm, never reaching shelter, always wet, always exhausted, never facing the inevitable. No, the path toward peace does not lie in evasion. It lies, instead, in the acceptance of the storm's inevitability, in the willingness to face the tempest without illusion, without hope of escape. For there is no other path that leads to the stillness you seek. Only through the surrender to suffering itself does one begin to see beyond it, to understand its true nature, and in that understanding find a strange, painful clarity. There is no such thing as life without suffering, no existence untouched by the gnawing hunger of desire, no moment free from the grasp of dissatisfaction. This is not an accidental feature of life, not a temporary curse laid upon the spirit. It is the essence of existence itself. The will to live, the will to want, to strive, is inextricable from suffering. It is not a byproduct, a side effect. It is its very foundation. You cannot exist without desiring, and to desire is to suffer, for desire is always unfulfilled. In wanting, you acknowledge the absence of what you long for. In every desire is an inherent contradiction, the recognition that what you seek is always distant, always elusive, always just out of reach. And yet, it is this very desire, this ever-present yearning, that defines your life. You do not live in a vacuum of indifference. You live, instead, as a creature of longing. To desire is to be alive, to be a part of the ceaseless current of life that flows through all things. This flow is not gentle, not kind. It is a torrent, a current that drags you along whether you resist or not. In your most earnest attempts to avoid the sharp edges of life, you are still swept along in the tide. Every action, every thought, every breath you take is an echo of the will to live, an expression of the force that drives you toward what you cannot hold. And yet, you continue to believe in the illusion that there is something more, something better that you can reach. You live with the hope, sometimes conscious, sometimes buried deep in your unconscious, that one day the striving will cease, that the moment will come when your desire will be met, when your need will be fulfilled. Perhaps you do not believe in it fully, not in any rational way, but there is always the flicker of this hope, always a faint light in the corner of the soul that whispers, "Not yet." It is this very hope that fuels the ceaseless motion of your existence, this promise that someday, somehow, satisfaction will arise, though you know deep down, with every failure, that it will not. This is the cruelest deception, the idea that fulfillment is possible. It is a trap set by the very nature of the will. For fulfillment, true and lasting, is beyond the reach of the human condition. The hope of reaching satisfaction is itself the wellspring of the tension that binds you to life. And yet, you cannot rid yourself of it, even when you see it for what it is, a fleeting moment, a passing shadow that vanishes the moment you reach for it. The hunger remains. And in this hunger, there is no solace, only more desire, more striving, more suffering. What then does it mean to live? To exist in this world, with its endless cycles of longing, striving, and disappointment? It means simply to be a part of this eternal flux, to experience the ebb and flow of desire, of frustration, of fleeting moments of relief that never last. And yet, in the face of this, there is a strange beauty, not the beauty of fulfillment, but the beauty that arises from the knowledge of the truth. In seeing the world for what it is, you are free. Not free from suffering that would be a lie, but free from the delusion that it can ever be otherwise. It is not the end of suffering that brings peace, but the understanding of its inevitability. To cease struggling against it, to no longer wish for it to be different, is the only way to find stillness in a world that never stops moving. For in this understanding, you see that suffering is not an enemy to be defeated, but a companion on the journey, a companion who walks with you through the valleys and over the mountains, a companion whose presence you cannot escape, and whose absence would mean the end of your very life. This is the essence of detachment, not the cold withdrawal from life, but the quiet acceptance of it, in all its rawness and pain. Detachment does not mean disengagement, nor does it signify a rejection of the world. It means seeing the world as it is, with all its impermanence, its contradictions, its endless suffering. It means recognizing that nothing is permanent, that every pleasure fades, that every joy is but a temporary reprieve from the gnawing hunger of desire. And yet, in this recognition, there is no despair. There is only a profound stillness, a quiet that comes when you finally stop fighting, when you stop seeking to change what cannot be changed. To be detached is not to cease caring, not to become indifferent. It is to care, but without the illusion that anything you care for will endure, without the delusion that any object of your affection will bring lasting peace. It is to love the world for what it is, fleeting, painful, imperfect, and yet to love it without hope of possession, without the desire to hold on to it. To detach is to release the need to grasp, to let go of the will that binds you to the endless cycle of want. And in this release, there is a strange peace, not because the world has changed, but because your relationship to it has shifted. You no longer seek to possess it. You no longer need to make it conform to your will. You simply accept it as it is, in all its transience and sorrow. In this stillness, there is no triumph, no victory to be had. There is no goal to reach, no ultimate satisfaction to claim. There is only the understanding that what you seek will never be found, that peace is not a possession but a release. The release from the need to possess, from the endless wanting that defines the human condition. And in that release, you are free. Not free from suffering, but free in suffering, free to simply be. The desire for release, the longing for peace, clings to you like a shadow that never leaves your side. It is there in every waking moment, waiting patiently for you to acknowledge it, for you to believe that some action, some change in circumstance, some victory over fate will bring you what you seek. But the more you strive for it, the more it slips from your grasp. This constant friction, the tension between wanting and knowing that what you seek cannot be attained, is the true suffering of existence. And yet, it is within this very tension, within this constant battle of the will, that you are most truly alive. How strange it is to be caught in this paradox, to be a creature of pure longing, yet eternally unsatisfied. The very will that drives you forward is the force that perpetuates your agony. And you are left in this space, this yawning void between hope and despair, constantly reaching for something just beyond your reach, yet always falling short. This, too, is a part of the human condition, a condition that cannot be avoided, that cannot be escaped, no matter how much you wish it otherwise. But what if the very structure of this struggle, the very form of your striving, is not a punishment, but a reflection of something deeper, something truer than you have yet realized? What if the tension between desire and dissatisfaction is not the mark of your failure, but the mark of your humanity? To desire, to reach, to strive, these are not flaws or defects. They are the very essence of what it means to be a living being in this world. It is the force that propels you forward, that keeps you moving, even as you falter. And yet, paradoxically, it is in this very movement that you find your suffering, your emptiness. The truth, as ever, lies not in the end of the journey, but in the journey itself. Not in the resolution, but in the act of struggling against the inevitable. To experience life is to experience this tension, to be caught between the pool of desire and the weight of reality, forever trying to transcend it, yet forever bound by it. In this, there is a strange, fragile beauty, not in the fulfillment of desire, not in the end of suffering, but in the honest acknowledgement of it. In facing it without flinching, without attempting to mask it with distractions or false hopes, you begin to see the shape of the world more clearly, as it truly is. But you will not be comforted by this truth, not immediately. The truth offers no easy escape, no balm for your wounds. The truth is not a shield, but a mirror that reflects the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And in this reflection, there is no perfection, no harmony, no utopian promise of a life without struggle. There is only the stark reality of existence, with all its contradictions, its pain, its fleeting moments of joy, and its eternal emptiness. And yet, even in the recognition of this, there is a kind of freedom. It is the freedom that comes from surrendering to what is. Not the freedom of escape, not the freedom of achieving your desires, but the freedom of accepting that desire itself is a prison. In this acceptance, you are freed from the need to constantly seek, to constantly grasp, to constantly chase after something that will never satisfy. You are freed from the tyranny of your own will. This is not a triumphant release. It is not a moment of victory or exaltation. It is not a moment where the world opens up before you in perfect clarity and you are filled with the bliss of enlightenment and number. It is, instead, a quiet, almost imperceptible release. A letting go of the desperate need to change, to improve, to transcend. It is the moment when you no longer try to force life into some mold of your own making. When you no longer labor under the illusion that you can shape it to your will. You stop fighting, you stop grasping. And in that cessation of struggle, there is a stillness. But in this stillness, you may wonder, what remains? What is left when the noise of desire fades? When the relentless striving of the will falls silent? Is there not an abyss that opens before you, an emptiness that threatens to swallow you whole? Is not all of life defined by that very emptiness, the constant ache of something missing, something unattainable, something lost? And yet, even in this emptiness, there is something paradoxically full. There is no longer a need to fill the space. There is no longer a need to run towards something or away from something. There is only the space itself, vast, dark, and silent. And within it, there is room to simply be. For once you have seen through the veil, once you have realized that the search for fulfillment is an endless chase, once you understand that peace is not something to be found, but something to be surrendered to, the nature of your existence changes. You are no longer trying to escape it. You are no longer trying to transcend it. You are simply here, in this moment, in this world, without the need to make it into something else. And this, too, is a kind of freedom. But do not mistake this for an answer to your suffering. The world remains as it always has been, a place of striving, of emptiness, of fleeting joy and endless desire. Your suffering will not cease. The struggle will not end. And yet, in seeing this for what it is, in seeing that there is no escape from the tension, no escape from the will that shapes your life, you are freed from the desperate need to transcend it. In this realization, the search itself loses its grip on you. This is not a victory. It is not a resolution. It is, instead, a quiet acceptance. Not of peace, but of what is of the fundamental condition of being human, of the endless longing, the ceaseless striving, and the endless cycle of suffering that defines your existence. And in this acceptance, you are free, not because you have overcome the world, but because you have ceased to fight against it. You will continue to desire. You will continue to suffer. The will continue to shape your thoughts, your actions, your every breath. But now, it is no longer something to fear, no longer something to overcome. It is simply the way of things. And in this simple recognition, there is a stillness, a peace that comes not from escape, but from surrender, the quiet surrender, to the reality of your existence. The path you walk does not lead toward fulfillment. For there is no such thing. It leads only toward acceptance, toward the understanding that there is no final resolution, no ultimate release, no lasting satisfaction, only the endless unfolding of desire and suffering, and the quiet acceptance of it all. And in this acceptance, there is a strange peace, not the peace of the fulfilled will, but the peace of the will that has ceased to seek. In this moment of stillness, there is a terrible clarity. The world unfolds before you, not as a place of promise or potential, but as it truly is, a fleeting series of moments, each one passing into the next, leaving only the shadow of its existence behind. You have sought to grasp, to hold, to possess, but all that you have ever touched slips through your fingers like water. Nothing remains. And yet, you continue to seek, to stretch out toward what you cannot keep, hoping that perhaps this time, this thing, will offer you the peace you crave. But there is no peace in the world of the will. There is no end to the tension between desire and fulfillment, between hunger and satisfaction. You reach, you acquire, and yet the satisfaction is momentary, always vanishing, always receding into the past. And in the absence of this fleeting relief, the hunger returns, stronger than before. You are caught in an endless cycle, a loop from which there is no escape, no moment of final release. It is the nature of existence itself, a ceaseless craving, an unquenchable thirst that no object can satisfy, no accomplishment can fulfill. This is the core of suffering, not the pain of loss, not the sting of disappointment, but the very nature of the will itself. The desire that shapes every thought, every action, every breath is the source of your pain. And yet, it is also the very force that drives you to live, that compels you to move forward, to struggle, to strive. Without this will, you would cease to be. But to live with the will is to live in constant conflict, forever caught between the desire to reach something, to hold it, and the inevitable reality that what you seek will always be just out of reach. It is in this constant tension that your life unfolds. You cannot escape the cycle, for to desire is to suffer. To live is to experience this tension, this eternal gap between what is and what could be, between the real and the ideal. You can fight it, you can deny it, but it will remain. It will shape you, mold you, and carry you along, whether you wish to go or not. And yet, there is something strangely beautiful in this. Not in the struggle itself, not in the relentless pursuit of an unattainable goal, but in the quiet acceptance of it. To see the will for what it is, not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a force that is simply a part of you, is to begin to understand the nature of existence. For in this understanding, there is no longer a need to fight. There is no longer a need to conquer or escape the will. There is only the quiet recognition that it is the very essence of your being. And in this recognition, there is a release. Not the release of peace or fulfillment, but the release of resistance. You stop struggling against the current. You stop trying to swim upstream. And in this surrender, there is a stillness, a calm that arises not from the cessation of desire, but from the acceptance of it. It is a strange, uncomfortable stillness, one that does not bring the joy of accomplishment, nor the relief of peace, but a quiet, heavy acceptance of what is. The world remains as it has always been, a place of ceaseless striving, of unfulfilled desire, of fleeting moments of joy and endless stretches of pain. But in this acceptance, you are no longer at war with it. You no longer seek to escape it, to change it, to make it conform to your will. You simply acknowledge it as it is, in all its imperfection, in all its contradiction, and in this acknowledgement, there is a strange, almost painful comfort. You are no longer a prisoner of your desires, not because they have been conquered, but because you no longer see them as something to escape. They are simply there, as a part of your existence, as a part of the will that drives you. And in this recognition, there is freedom not from the will, but from the need to transcend it, not from suffering, but from the desire to avoid it. For to live is to suffer, to desire is to suffer, and to accept this is to find a strange form of peace. Not the peace of fulfillment, not the peace of satisfaction, but the peace that arises when you cease to seek anything other than what is. The peace that comes when you stop chasing after illusions, when you stop trying to fill the endless void within you with fleeting things. And in this peace, there is no triumph. There is no moment of victory. There is no great revelation, no sudden enlightenment. There is only the quiet stillness of acceptance, the profound and unsettling realization that you need nothing more than what is already here. The will continues, the desires persist, and the suffering remains. But you no longer seek to change it. You no longer seek to escape it. And in that, there is freedom. Not the freedom from suffering, but the freedom of seeing suffering for what it is, an inescapable part of existence. There is nothing more to seek, nothing more to strive for. There is only the recognition of what has always been the endless dance of desire and fulfillment, the endless cycle of suffering and release, the endless ebb and flow of life. You are part of this cycle, caught within it, shaped by it, and yet, in seeing it for what it is, in no longer resisting it, there is a strange, quiet peace. Not the peace of fulfillment, but the peace of acceptance. The peace that comes when you no longer wish for the world to be anything other than what it is. In the end, there is nothing left to desire. There is only the recognition of the truth that you will continue to desire, continue to strive, and continue to suffer. But this is not something to be fixed or overcome. It is simply the nature of existence. And in this simple truth, there is no need for anything more. No need for peace, no need for fulfillment, no need for escape. There is only the stillness of what is. And so, there is nothing more to say. No truth left to uncover. No illusion left to dispel. You have reached the still point, the quiet at the heart of the storm, where all things move and yet remain unmovable. There is only the recognition that life, in all its striving, in all its pain, in all its fleeting pleasures, is what it is, and nothing more. The will that drives you, the desire that shapes you, the suffering that accompanies your every breath, these are not obstacles, nor are they burdens to be cast aside. They are simply the expression of existence itself, a rhythm you cannot escape, a song that plays endlessly, even as you try to silence it. In this surrender, you are not defeated, Nor are you freed. You simply are. You exist without hope, without the need for anything to change. No victory will come. No release will follow. The cycle will continue, ever unchanged. And in this, there is a quiet peace. Not the peace of fulfillment, but the peace of understanding. A peace that comes not from the cessation of desire, but from the acceptance that desire is your very nature, and that it need not be feared. You have seen it now, the truth of things. The world will never be anything other than what it is, and neither will you. There is no transcendence to be gained, no final freedom to be found. There is only this, the endless movement of the will, the eternal dance of suffering and release. And within this dance, there is no escape, no conclusion, no end, only the slow, endless turning. And in this turning, you are free not from the world, but from the desire to change it. And so, you rest, not in peace, but in the quiet acknowledgement of the world's indifference, not in fulfillment, but in the absence of the need to be fulfilled. The will moves, the body moves, but in the stillness of this moment, you are no longer swept along. You simply are, and in this being, there is no need for more,